good morning everyone. Welcome to the backyard garden, and we're working really hard now at getting ready for fall planting. And so I figured after weeks and weeks and weeks of saying I'm gonna start seeds and little tidbits here and there about planting seeds, that we'd spend this morning talking about planting seeds and what we do and what I'm doing at each stage. I've gotten quite a few questions already from folks about how to handle different types of things, so I thought we'd go through that this morning. So before any of that though, I want to ask you to be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I just did a video that has gotten rave reviews about making baba ganoush, and Joe made funny eyes at me. It has gotten rave reviews, literally rave reviews.
The Baba Ganoush Society is over the moon.
Baba Ganoush! No, go watch the Baba Ganoush video and be sure to plant yourself some eggplant. I've got lots of eggplant babies started here today. That means I can make lots of good Baba Ganoush in the future. All right, so what am I planting? Well, I am planting in late July, and that's when I really started putting seeds in. And most of the seeds that I put in mid-July are about this size now, okay? So I've got that, I've got this, I've got this. These were all done, all except these two right here, these three right here, these were all done in mid-July. And so each week after that, I was planting peppers, tomatoes, eggplants. As the beginning of August started, I started planting my Brussels sprouts, continued planting peppers, tomatoes, eggplants, and then as each week has gone by, I have begun planting more and more brassicas. I have begun planting onions, a few of my herbs, and all different types of flowers that I'm going to want to have flowering in the springtime. So I'm just getting started with all of that. So this morning I figured let's go through the process of Napa cabbage. If you want cabbage this season, then you need to make sure that you start getting your cabbage in now. One of the things that I talk about regularly is that I like to do succession planting. Succession planting is really good for the back-breaking work that you're going to do. It's really good for the amount of harvest time that it requires. It's really good for making sure that you have enough produce throughout the season, and that you're not overwhelming yourself with tons and tons of one particular thing that harvests all at the same time, but rather you're harvesting year-round different types of things. So what I've been doing is about 5 days. About every 5 days, I am planting something in my seed starts. Now, this one is about 5 days old. In all honesty, I think that I did this about 5 days ago. And if you come up here and look a little bit closer, Joe, you'll see that I do have my different types of brassicas that are barely starting to come up. So here's some Napa cabbage. Here is some Clarissa cabbage. Some of these literally Amish paste tomatoes I saw germinate overnight. So let's talk about germination. One of the most important things that you need to understand about seeds germinating is they need simply potting soil. Just a very, very simple, nice, organic potting soil. I buy bags of that, I fill up a bucket, I sit, and I put those seeds in. Now, you won't really need to water those right away because nothing is going to happen to them while they're sitting there on the table until you get ready to take your whole entire container, just like this, and put it out somewhere. What you're looking for in the summertime for germination is the warmth. Well, listen, we don't have any problem with the warmth. So all of your seeds, they could be sitting in a shady spot outside. That's perfectly fine because we're looking for those 70-degree temperatures. As soon as they germinate, then you have to start paying attention to where the sun is coming from and how often they get the sun and how long they get the sun. You're looking for 8 hours of dappled sunlight, or maybe 6 hours of morning sunlight. That's what you're looking for, just to get them to take off to these levels. Because you don't want them to get to what's called leggy. A lot of times people will say leggy. And so here's what I'm talking about when they start to get to that certain height. So let's do this first though. Let's start out by taking this potting soil mix that I have done here. And then I've got my Napa cabbage. This is a really pretty, a nice big head of cabbage. It's going to take 50 to 55 days. So these will be ready to go. These will be my earliest cabbage ready to harvest in 50 to 55 days from basically germination. So that's not actually too long from now before I get them into the ground, and they'll be my first cabbage to begin putting on. Okay, so here's what the brassica seed looks like. Brassica is broccoli, cauliflower, kale, cabbage. This is what the seed looks like. It's a little round seed. I like to do 6 because if I get 6, then I'm able to do a 6-pack. If I germinate 6. Now these have been germinating really well. I've been able to germinate 100% with this particular seed package. So, and I just do, because I'm doing successional, I just do one thing, just like this, that's all. Okay? And I'm taking a little bit of my potting soil and just popping it on top. Now the next step would be, and I didn't bring any over here with me, would be to take a tongue depressor or some kind of little plastic plant label and write Napa cabbage on it. I like to do that right away. That makes sure that I understand that I have planted seeds in this and I know exactly what the seeds are. So this is a simple thing. You can order them online. You can buy them at your grocery stores. And they don't last a super long time. So if you're looking for plant labels that last longer than just getting them to the ground, then you need to buy plastic and reuse them. But if you're only looking to label your seeds, these are perfect for seed labeling. One thing that is a challenge for that is that because they break off or don't work, or the label washes off of them, or they compost, this isn't something I can then take my black cherry and put it in the ground and then know for sure that this is going to last, so that I can know that this is a black cherry. I have a lot of tomato plants right now. Until the tomato actually grows, I don't know what tomato it is, and then I'll have to go back and look through it. So I'm getting to where I'm doing a lot more labeling, or I've ordered some different types of labels so I can do it just a little bit differently and try to figure out how I can have a better consistent, especially when we're talking about just large containers. I want to make sure I have things labeled, so I'm learning different ways to get that solved. So here I am simply writing Napa cabbage on here. I like to write it on both sides, so no matter where I'm looking at, if I'm just out watering real quick, I can see it on both sides. Boom. Very simple. When I'm ready to put this out with the other plants, I will then water it in. Okay, so planting Brussels sprouts, onions, I'm pretty much done with tomatoes. I'm pretty much done with peppers. If you have some old seeds, like this Ace 55 is a 2019 variety, you know, if you're wanting to, I have a lot of seeds. So what I do is I kind of keep planting them, because I don't know what's going to happen with our winter time. If we have a super mild winter, then I could keep planting tomato seeds all the way through the winter and just keep hoping that all of those tomato plants will keep making it around the year. It's kind of up to you, but don't take your brand new Happy Baker Creek heirloom $5 for 10 seeds, package of seeds, and plant them all now. It's too late for that. Save those seeds for January, okay? But your non-vital seeds, your inexpensive American seeds from the dollar store, go ahead and keep planting all of that stuff. That's favorable for just giving it a try. Okay, so then you saw me take my Napa cabbage seed, and that's what I put in that first little pot. Now after, let's see, this was early August, so after about 2 weeks, I now have this. I have a 6-pack of Napa cabbage seeds. Now this is what's considered a baby leaf. All of your brassicas will have this type of leaf when they're babies. They, let's see, that's the cabbage, the Brussels sprout, the broccoli, the cauliflower, the cabbage, yeah, all of that, radish, all of that. Looks the same. Now it's going to start putting on its true leaves. These are the true leaves. I want to make sure that every single one of my babies has some true leaves. Okay? So then what I'm going to do is take my little 6-pack, or even one of these. So like I have taken, this is a pumpkin. You can see that this is a acorn squash. Now this is the baby leaf of an acorn squash, and this is the true leaf of an acorn squash. Okay? Keep an eye on it. Now, here's one of the things that I constantly am telling you. Keep an eye on your garden. It makes it easier for you. It's not a bunch of hard work. It's just I'm looking at my plants, because what I just noticed was a couple of little little white pests, and I don't want them hanging out on my baby plants. I want my baby plants to have a nice chance to be really healthy. Okay, so baby leaves, true leaves, replanted in a single pot like this, or a 6-pack like this. This is a, let's see, Brad's Atomic Grape. That's a heirloom from Baker's Creek Heirloom. I've got my 6-pack. I'm gonna take a little bit of this and just make sure. Now with cabbage, it's a very small plant, and I wanna make sure that yes, the roots are in, but I'm not concerned about the stem being in. If you're planting a tomato plant, you want to leave plenty of room, and it's okay if you put the tomato, like you could plant this tomato plant all the way up to here. Okay? This tomato plant was under the soil. I put it way deep in, and it still came up this much above the ground. So you want to, and it can root out from that whole stem. Cabbage is a little bit different. So I want to make sure that I've got a good amount of soil in my little 6-pack here, so that when I pull those roots out, I'm putting it right into some good soil. Okay, so this is what I do. And now this label is easy to switch because it's just one here, right, like that. I like to take and kind of put my fingers where I'm holding the plants and flip it over, and then you can see that I have, now if I had opened this up and there was a packed amount of roots in there, then I would know that without a doubt this has got to be move to a different plant, a bigger. So I'm going to keep an eye out on these. I want to look at the bottom of them. Is there any roots coming through these little holes? Because once this is full and packed with the roots that are like this, but packed in there, I want to move that plant up to the next biggest pot. And that's how you keep from having plants be too leggy before you're able to put them in late September or October. Okay, so I like to do this over a bigger thing here, so that I can lose some of that soil. And I'm not breaking it, I'm not tearing them apart. I'm simply just softly letting the soil fall off so that I can begin to feel where the plant's coming loose. And there it is, the whole root, just like that. It's literally that easy. If you have questions and you're watching right now, go ahead and ask the questions, and Joe will help me connect with you and answer those questions. You see here, all I did was just take it. Very simple, I'm not concerned about this little plant. It's going to be fine. If it doesn't make it, it doesn't make it. Oh, well, no big deal. Putting them all in like that. And I'm just sorting them in right now. And then I'll go back and make sure they have a nice little hole to put their roots in. Okay. So here's one right here. Got my little root ball here. Make sure I put it in a nice little hole. Taking some of my soil here and putting it in, just like that.
You're not concerned about getting those roots that we saw hanging down with the dirt on them down deeper into the pot?
Oh, they're deep enough. I just kind of, make a hole for them. I mean, they're deep. They're deep enough. And it's literally that simple. I'm just going in and moving these plants over like this. Make a little hole, drop those root ball right down in that little hole.
Is the main purpose of this to avoid having to spend more money than you are spending so far at the nursery by buying plants that are already, someone else has done this process and they're bigger when you purchase them?
It's a little bit of everything. It's that succession concept, which means I want to make sure I have lots of different sizes of plants. It's for resource management so that I'm not spending all of my, I can buy a whole package of seeds for the same price that it costs to buy a 6-pack of cabbage. It gets me ahead. So cabbage like this, I could totally just put directly in at the farm or whatever. I could put the seed directly in, but this gives me an early start so that I'm going to have cabbage early in the season that I can start storing away to start eating right away. So it's got different reasons. Money is certainly a part of it. One thing that I have found is
also volume. I imagine you're doing more than the average gardener because
Yeah.
of the volume of land that you're planting on.
Right. Well, and I want to make sure I've got the varieties that I want, because at a lot of the nurseries, they're only going to give you the very basic varieties that are hybrid, which hybrid's fine, but hybrid seeds, all hybrid varieties that the local system has said these are the ones you have to plant. And there's a lot of other types of plants that do just well in our area too. So for one thing, I'm getting into heirlooms a little bit, although this Napa cabbage isn't exactly an heirloom. And then the other thing is that I'm giving myself a head start. Like a lot of the nurseries won't get stuff in time for me to want to put it in, because they're catering to your basic gardener. They're not catering to someone that has a need for growing food and is growing large-scale food gardens. We just haven't gotten there in Corpus Christi yet. Now, in other parts of the country, they're catering to food growers and gardeners and people that are serious about it. An example of that is that I had to drive to San Antonio to get compost. My dad and I drove to San Antonio to get compost because there's no compost in my region. So wherever you're at, if you've got more food farmers in your area, then you're going to have better access to things than what I have here. So I kind of have to do it on my own. The other thing is that I learned in this last Corona round, because in the spring we were already in this process and no one wanted to go to the stores, and so I just planted my own seeds, and it got me more serious about, I can just do this myself. And I'll still buy some plants, but yeah, is there a question?
Well, Lulu's asking, when you do the seed planting like you're doing right now, where do you store the racks, the containers, after you've got all your seeds planted?
Okay, so when I'm putting a new seed in like this one, it doesn't really, I'm doing everything outside. And really, even in the winter time, well, that we'll have a different discussion when the winter comes. But it's warm enough to germinate seeds, and it's not too hot if you keep them in the shade. So this little thing was in the shade and might still be in the shade just a little bit longer to make sure that I'm getting everything germinated. One that's just barely been planted is going to be in the shade because it's plenty warm. I'm looking for wet, warm, germinate. Once they germinate, then I'm looking for wanting them to be in the sun, but what I'm hoping for is maybe about 6 hours of morning sun. And make sure that you turn, Joe, bring that camera over here. Make sure that you turn your boxes around. So this is what I'm using, but I'm moving them. Like, I'll take this and move it. And the reason why is because those things are going to start stretching towards the sun. But if I turn it again tomorrow, then it's going to stretch back towards the sun this way. And what I'm trying to do is keep them from getting super leggy and long. And so 6 hours of morning sun, 8 hours of dappled sun, that's really kind of what we're looking for these baby plants. You don't want them to grow too fast right now. You just want them to germinate and be ready. And then what I was saying is that you need to make sure, like now this, I moved this solid 5 days ago to put it in the ground. I'm looking at the bottom of this plant to see when my roots start to come out, because what I'm looking for is this plant to be packed in with roots before it gets too leggy, and then I can move it up to the next size pot. Then I can take this and I can put peat moss and potting soil in here, and then I can put it in here. And then when I'm ready to put it in my gardens, wherever I decide to put it in my gardens, it's really simple. I've got a nice, clean, good pot of good soil to go right in the hole, whatever hole that is that I choose. And it's going to go in different stages. So different plants are going to have different stages. Some of these can go directly into containers and can stay in containers. Some of them will go into the ground at the farm. Some of them will go into my nice edible landscape type of area and stuff like that as well. Now, before I get too far and forget about this, I want to make sure these are weaklings, okay? I just moved them. I touched their roots. I moved them into new soil. It's hot outside. I've got to take immediately before I wait. Now this one, no big deal. This new seed planted, no reason to rush on that one because nothing's going to happen in there until I put water on it. This one needs relief, okay? So I want to make sure that as soon as I plant those, I water them in. Don't use that super hot water. Make sure that you go and get yourself some let the hose run and get some cool water in there. Now, because this soil hasn't had any moisture in it at all, you really want to make sure that you give it a soft water, but that it's reaching all the way down to the bottom of that pot. Okay, if you've got rainwater, that is ideal. I actually don't have any rainwater right now. But if you have rainwater, rainwater's better than your city water. However, you got city water, that's what you use. Don't stress or panic too much about it. Each stage you'll be able to get a little further along with better quality of whatever it is that you're wanting to do.
Quick detour question.
Yes.
You're discussing planting into soil and pots like this today. Are you planting anything directly into the ground right now? And if so, what can people plant into the ground?
I'm not planting anything in the ground right now. The soil, well...
I mean direct seed into the ground is what let me clarify the question.
An average gardener shouldn't be putting anything in the garden anything in the ground right now, because you have got to be serious about making sure that you understand the temperature of the soil, that you understand that you have to water that plant every single day. I did plant some cover crop seeds out at the farm over the last couple days as we've been preparing that ground, because once I start preparing ground, I don't want to leave it torn up. So anything you're touching, any ground that you're touching, if you're not going to plant in it some type of cover crop, then you need to make sure that ground is covered with some carbon material of some kind. Let's go over there and look. I think I've got, and were there any other questions about?
There is a question, but remind me, I'll ask you at the end.
Okay, all right. So let's go over here real quick, because this is the other thing that I'm working on right now, and that is getting my my gardens ready. So you know that I build hugelkultur beds in my small backyard gardens, and all I've done over here is begun taking up the soil and then covering it up with carbon material. Now I am going to take this sand. We're trying this sand out today. I'm going to add this sand in, and then I'm going to get it to a place where it's ready to go, cover it up, and leave it alone. It's really so hot right now. It's really too hot to plant anything into the ground. So prepare your beds, but cover it. Cover it with hay. You can cover it with leaves from your trees. You can cover it with cardboard. Anything like that is fine, but don't leave your soil don't turn your soil over and then leave it open to be baked by the sun, because that's your microbiotics. And everything I always talk about your soil health is making sure that your soil is alive with all those microbes. And if you go in and break it all up, getting ready for the fall, and then you leave it open to the sun, everything in that soil is going to be dead and broken and hard balls of clay by the time you get back to it.
So that's why you're putting the cardboard over the top.
Yes, and don't start breaking ground till you're ready to work with it. Ideally that wouldn't have happened exactly the way it happened, but it's taken me a little while to get some sand and to get some other things ready to go. So okay, so that's really the main things I have. I am going to be putting out on my YouTube channel a full video of seed planting, seed starting, what I've done with my seeds, what kind of seeds I'm planting, when, how, all of that. So that'll be there. This video will be downloaded and put up on my YouTube channel as well, so that you can watch it again for more information later on. And don't forget that we are launching episode 50 of the podcast Dinner Table Talks on Monday, tomorrow. So that's dinnertabletalks.com, episode 50. It's a really good one. You said there was a question.
Yeah, if you're ready to wrap it up, I'm going to ask you to repeat something you said earlier, but the question came up again, and that is someone goes out to their nursery today, buys some of this material that you've discussed because they want to plant seeds today. What should they be planting today?
Okay, so make sure you're going out and you're getting yourself potting soil. I suggest you use organic potting soil. I like to use Kellogg's organic potting soil. Over the years, I have priced that out and checked out the quality of it and used it, and I like that one. That's the one I like in terms of pricing. It's also not connected to that giant brand that also sells a Roundup that I'm not interested in contributing to their stock prices. Okay, then what am I going to do? I'm planting Brussels sprouts, definitely. If you want Brussels sprouts, now's the time. Cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, onions, herbs, things like that. I'm pretty much done with tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants. Definitely don't go buy those seeds to plant them. If you're going to buy seeds to plant of those varieties, wait till January to do those. I'm not doing any more of the pumpkin or winter squash because those take such a long time that by the time it gets to the point where it's really starting to put its fruit on, we might have a freeze, and squash is not going to make it through a freeze. It's going to be in the ground, it's going to die. So if you haven't started your pumpkins or your acorn squash, by now it's probably too late at this point. Now, if you've got some I'm always going to say this, if you've got some random old seeds, experiment. That's what you do with the old seeds. Go to a seed swap, trade out seeds with people. Those are the seeds that you give a try for just whatever you're going to do with experimenting with things. I did want to mention that I do have a seed swap seed right here. This is from Michelle Locke. It's a heirloom lobed tomato, and I'm super excited that it germinated and it's doing really well. I actually have about 4 or 5 of these going. And so it's really fun to trade seeds with your neighbors. So look for seed swap options. I'm going to do a seed swap soon. I probably should have done it already, but I'm going to do a seed swap so that we can get together and share some seeds and stuff like that. But that's really all I have for today. Did that get all of our questions answered? Any other questions out there?
Nope.
Very good. I hope you all have a fantastic week. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It helps me get further along with getting this information out to more people and get more growing. And it's already helping people, so I'm excited about that. Thank you all so much. Happy Sunday. See you soon. Goodbye.